Biden to pass the torch to Harris as the Democratic convention begins.
Tonight, he will pass the torch to Kamala Harris.
And I think you'll see a sitting president pass the torch.
President Biden is expected to pass the torch. I think it's a really great moment for him to pass the torch.
This is not the first time a sitting president passed the torch over to a vice president. It happened in 1968.
And effectively pass the torch.
The president will pass the torch.
President Joe Biden will get ready to pass the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris.
There's a lot of symbolism in what's being described as this pass the torch moment.
The torch is being passed. Look out, Chicago. Another fire is coming your way. The Democrats are passing torches around again. Soon they'll be on horseback with ropes. These traditions die hard, you know. Now, I laughed at that because this morning, and they all use the same party-issued language. The party tells the media what words to use, and the media, they use the words that are issued by the party. It's like a communist country. Filthy, dirty, rotten, corrupt, fake news media people. A lot of them around here, I'll tell you that much. Washington, D.C., the lead story headline, front page, Washington Post today, Biden prepares to pass the baton. See, they decided to deviate from the party-issued language and use baton instead of torch because they know the Democrats might burn Chicago this week to the ground, not since Mrs. O'Leary's cow. Honestly, that caused the big Chicago fire. Maybe not. Might have been the FBI, as it turns out. Speaking of which, has the FBI explained to us why they arrested DC City Council member yesterday in his $10,000 a month penthouse apartment? Because Trayon White, who thinks that the Rothschild family controls the weather and makes it snow, Trayon White was arrested by the FBI yesterday afternoon, apparently at his $10,000 a month penthouse apartment. I think that alone would mean, what does a member of the D.C. City Council make? Not enough to pay $10,000 a month for your penthouse apartment. That would be more than his entire annual salary. It might have something to do with that. We were trying to guess yesterday, would it be sex crimes, drug crimes, financial crimes? What kind of crimes would it be for the FBI to be all over the Jew hater, Rothschild conspiracy theorist, which is okay with the Washington Post and the news media? Remarkable stuff. Yeah, they In fact, I don't think they even have the story today in the Washington Post. I had it yesterday afternoon, but they didn't. Today, the front page of the style section. They have the A-sectional, because some of them are A-sectional. They have the metro-sectional, because some of them are metro-sectional. And they have the style sectional because they desperately want to steal someone else's style. And the front page, see this, Michael? I haven't shown you this. Almost the whole front page is the headline in giant print, huge, giant, Chicago Hope. And it is a photograph of 8 giant artistic pictures of Kamala Harris with the word forward beneath the pictures. And it's this, kind of street art that was pinned up. It looks like in Chicago, probably. And the word forward. And the headline is Chicago Hope. That was a TV series, wasn't it? Wasn't that about a hospital or something like that? Everyone kept thinking 1968 is the subheadline. But are the convention vibes now more 2008? And let me say that the word they're using all over the place now is vibe and vibes. And they're saying all the news media bootlicks, all the tongue bath girls, and a lot of them are boys. All the tongue bath girls are using the word vibe and saying don't look for the convention to be all about substance and policy. It's about the vibe. And maybe some singer will show up. Maybe Beyonce will show up and will sing. Because as I've been saying for many years now, our entire political system has been reduced to a terrible cable television show. And this is just more evidence of that, more proof of that. Remarkable stuff. The Democrat Party and their media bootlicks. By boot, I like to keep it, dinner table conversation clean. But the bootlicks, the tongue bath girls of the Democrat Party media. Just amazing stuff.
Democrats are hoping to turn vibes into votes. For the first time, two major national polls show Harris beating Trump.
Abilio Acosta on CNN. He's ashamed of his Cuban heritage. He goes by Jim when his name is Abilia. Abilio. I think his sister is Abilia. He's, because it's a gendered language, but that's why they want to say Latinx. Latinx. Latinx is what Joe Biden wants to say, to eliminate gender from the Spanish language and, of course, the Italian language as well. Isn't that amazing? Has the FBI released any word on why they arrested DC City Councilman Trayon White yesterday? Still nothing. They threw him in jail. According to reports, he was thrown in jail yesterday and was being held without bail and was not being allowed to talk to his lawyer. And they haven't told us what he was arrested for. Is he a child killer? Is he John Wayne Gacy of Washington, D.C.? What was he doing in his $10,000 a month plus penthouse apartment when he doesn't make that kind of money at all? Democrats, aren't they amazing? And this is a remarkable story too. I've got to say, and your broader news media will not report it. The left-wing radicals at Mediaite reporting it. Democrats have been asked to not book hotels in Chicago under their own name due to safety concerns as pro-Palestinian protesters converge on DNC. You mean pro-terrorist, pro-murder, pro-genocide, mental cases by the tens of thousands are converging on Chicago. And I don't know if you saw this, but I have a list of all the people that have been cleared to protest, the groups that have been cleared to protest. And there are no good guys involved in the protest. All bad guys that they've given permits to. If you're pro-Israel, they're not giving you permits because left-wing Democrats and the government of Let's Go Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, they hate the Jews and white people, generally speaking. And the Jews, they look at them and they say, those are white people. I hate them too. Just like Trayon White, the DC City Councilman, who is African-American. I mean, his name's Trayon, You know any white guys named Trayon? You got any school, go to school with any Trayons? Pretty amazing stuff. So, but he's in jail. He's in the can. He's in the hoosgow. He's a DC City Councilman. And now he's in jail, and the FBI hasn't even told us why yet. Why is that? But the long list of groups that have been okayed to protest are all Jew-hating, anti-Israel groups that hate America and Jewish people too, because, that's how they are, and they're not on our side. I've been saying these things for how long do I have to say these things, honestly? But the city of Chicago releases information regarding permitted parades and assemblies during the Democratic National Convention, and I have the chicago.gov document right here. Yesterday, 5 p.m., they had what was supposed to be the pro-abortion rally, the Coalition for Reproductive Justice, and LGBTQ+. Now, if you're LGBTQ or plus, what do you care about abortion? You're L or you're G, so you're not making people pee, which is pregnant. So it was the Coalition for Reproductive Justice. What is that justice that you speak of? Because last year there were more than 1 million abortions in the United States. Is that justice for 1 million people? Maybe they deserved it. Bad, baby, bad. If they were baby harp seals, they'd be very upset about this. Today at 8 a.m., Monday the 19th at 8 a.m., the assembly is allowed, but a 9 a.m. step off from Washington to Hermitage and to Maple. And this is the United States Palestinian Community Network, right? And that's okay. Then at 11 a.m., Students for a Democratic Society at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Students for a Democratic Society. That's the SDS, from the old days, radical left-wing terror group. And they got the okay from the city of Chicago, but the pro-Israel people didn't. At noon, they can assemble, and at 2 o'clock, they step off. The Chicago Alliance Against Racists and Political Repression, as they don't allow Jews to march. No sense of irony. And they discriminate against Jews getting into universities, and they discriminate against white people. But wait a minute. They're all race things. Then at 4 o'clock, they step off. Poor People's Human Rights Campaign. The Poor People's Human Rights Campaign. I'm for human rights for everybody, not just poor people. At 2 o'clock, Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Oppression. But you guys already had one. Oh, that's tomorrow. See, I jumped ahead. So they got one today and they got one tomorrow too. Also tomorrow, the March for the Poor People's Agenda, because they care very deeply about that. And where are the pro-Israel marches? There are no permitted marches, according to the Emergency Management and Communications Department at the city of Chicago. None of that pro-Jew stuff. Can't have that. She didn't choose the Jewish guy as her running mate from Pennsylvania because he's a Jew, and too many of the Democrats, they hate the Jews, just like Trayon White, who was mysteriously arrested by the FBI yesterday in his $10,000 a month penthouse apartment, and nobody knows why. Isn't that amazing? Our Democratic Party, they are truly something. All right, let's go, because the big thing is this week, and they're going to apparently nominate Kamala Harris to be the Democrat Party's nominee for the presidency of the United States. And she wants to, I was thinking about Joe Biden with paying other people's student loan debt for some inexplicable reason. Why not their car loans? Why not home loans? Why not any other your credit card debt? Why not? Well, don't suggest it, because those will be next. Then Kamala Harris announced last week she wants to give away $25,000. My building manager, Mark, came up to me today and made jokes. Hey, you got $25,000 from me? I want to buy an apartment. And that's because Kamala is promising to give everybody $25,000 if they're first-time home buyers. And talking to a real estate professional about this, said, that would drive real estate values up, costs up $25,000, right? And it would cause havoc. Right now, the problem is there's not enough inventory. People aren't selling their homes right now, right? So what this will do is drive real estate costs up, because the government is throwing in $25,000 over here. But it doesn't solve the problem, which is there's not enough inventory available on the market for people that are looking for houses. So they get everything wrong every time. And she wants to force grocery stores to sell, everybody keeps using a gallon of milk as the example, to sell all their food at lower prices, because the government has decided that grocery stores are charging too much, because a poll shows that people noticed that groceries cost more now. So the Soviet Union is here, and her name is Kamala Harris. You know that the best-selling Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier uses Oxy technology, and Oxy technology helps to quickly destroy a whole lot of different viruses and odors and mold spores and more in the air, in your home, in your office. Thousands of great 5-star reviews online. It works like a champ. We have 2 of them at home ourselves. Any smell will vanish in just a few seconds with the thunderstorm being on. Anything, trash cans, dirty diapers, left-wing protesters, no match. for the Eden Pure thunderstorm. The powerful thunderstorm sends out O3 molecules. The O3 molecules seek out and destroy odors even underneath and behind furniture. Nothing can hide from the thunderstorm. And best of all, you don't have to buy these filters over and over again and replace them, noting on your calendar when it's time. You don't have to do that. A thunderstorm is only this big. You can hold it in your hand, just like this. Plug it into the wall. Boom, it's off and running. Start enjoying your home again and fresh air. Get several thunderstorms. Right now, you can save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. And you get 3 units for under $200. One, your basement, your teenager's room, any place you like to breathe clean, fresh air. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code CHRIS3. That's CHRIS and the number 3 to save $200 because you hang out with me. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is CHRIS3. Yeah, day one, it really gets going today. And Joe Biden, he's going to Chicago. He's going to give a humdinger of a speech, tell us that Kamala's real good. He doesn't believe it. He's angry with everybody. Even the New York Times had to point it out. I got that coming up, too. All right, let's go back to the phones. Then I'll get to the New York Times and the coup. Well, let's go to Frank, calling from Elmwood Park, Illinois. Frankie, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
What's up, Chris? How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. What do you say?
I kind of stumbled on you a couple of weeks ago. You and another guy was trying to look for a sports station, an old radio. But my curiosity is this: why do you keep saying that one party is a communist, and at the same time they're pro-corporation or they're bought by corporations? You can't be both. It's one or the other.
Oh, they can be.
No, they can't. It's one or the other. Communism does not support corporations at all.
Well,
they're about classless. Nobody makes more money than the other.
Well, in theory, but it's never worked It's never worked that way.
It's reality. You can't be both.
Well, sure you can.
Me when you say stuff.
Well, look at Vladimir Putin. Look at communist China right now. They've got corporations all over the place because the communists.
They're in the middle. They're in the middle because China, although originally communist, they're making money.
Right. Well, they realized.
Right now they're like, we love you, we hate you. That's
well,
how they are.
Sure. But Frank, I would put it this way: when the Soviet Union collapsed, it collapsed for economic reasons, and Putin and Xi Jinping and all the commies, they realized that in order to survive, to destroy the world, they have to generate wealth, they have to generate income. So they adopted a form of capitalism so they could continue to destroy the world.
I think the debate for the new generations, instead of capitalism or socialism, is we're going to have both, and then which proportion of each should we have in order to make this all work? It's a much more sensible debate.
Yes, former DNC chair and governor and presidential candidate Howard Dean. And Frank, I didn't want to cut you off there. It's one of those clock things that I can't stop. But I appreciate your being befuddled by this. It's easy to understand. But the Soviet Union collapsed. They recognized that it was for economic reasons, and they recognized that communism does not generate wealth, only poverty and slavery and brutality. And the commies, Putin and his forebears, several of his forebears, recognized that they need to find a way to generate wealth. So what they did is they turned over like the steel industry to one of their big Communist Party cronies who was a senior figure in the Communist Party. And then let's take railroads and turn the railroads over to another Communist Party crony, a Moscow pal, a Kremlin insider. And we'll call them oligarchs and say that they're in charge. They own it like they created it, like they're Andrew Carnegie or Carnegie, if you prefer, and like they're Henry Ford, like they're Bill Gates. But they didn't create anything. The Soviets stole the model for everything from Western countries. And then the commies in Russia, when the Soviet Union collapsed, they divvied up whatever was there and pretended that they were private industries, right? Then you get these multi-billionaire oligarchs who are gangsters and go around shooting people in the head, and they're total gangsters, right? In China, they recognized also, and it was really the fall of the Soviet Union for them, although they were inching in that direction. They realized that they don't have a lot, they have natural resources, and they have, back then they had 1 billion slaves. Now they have 1.5 billion slaves. And so they allow some people, as long as they're subservient to the party, to grow businesses, industries, but never forget that the hobnailed boot of the state is on your neck. And they're going to take most of that money. Of course, here in the United States, they want to take more than 50% of whatever your company makes too, and whatever your income is. The more you make, the more the government wants to take from you. And like the Barack Obama administration official who said that they agree with Chairman Mao that all power comes from the barrel of a gun, the statists are here, Frank. The lefties are here. And they're morphing. They're evolving. Because the 20th century, they wanted to enslave the whole world. It didn't work out quite as well as they had originally hoped. They still enslave more than 1 billion people just in China alone.
We kind of agree with Mao that political power comes largely from the barrel of a gun.
Ron Bloom from the Barack Obama, Joe Biden administration, agreeing with Mao that all power comes from the barrel of a gun. The Chinese communists and the Russian communists recognized that you need to have somebody that's incentivized to create and to grow industries and businesses to make money so they can steal it. See, that's the whole point. And that's what a 50% tax rate is. Kamala has talked about an 80% tax rate. Kamala has talked about giving $25,000 to what she says will be new home buyers, which is anti-capitalist, anti-free market. She's talking about, how did she phrase it? She mangled it because she doesn't speak English very well. She's not very bright.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
Price gauging on food. She meant price gouging. That grocery stores, she says, are gouging because they noticed in the polls that people are upset that the price of food has gone up so much, and boy, has it. And so she's going to fight price gauging because she doesn't speak English very well, even when reading the teleprompter, and it was written by somebody else. She tried to say price gouging. There is no price gouging in the food industry. There are supply chain issues because the left has so tampered with the free market and with capitalism that they've mangled everything from electric cars to food on grocery store shelves to the prices in restaurants and tampering with the minimum wage and having mandatory this and mandatory that. Keep in mind, Frank, the left doesn't care what you do as long as it's mandatory. And what they do not want to make mandatory, they want to ban. And I understand, Frank, why you'd say, you call them communists, but then you say they're taking all this corporate money. Of course they are. The commies have always taken from others, and it's always a shakedown, Frank. It's always a quid pro quo. It's always like Joe Biden and his family taking in $27 million from foreign entities. For what exactly? The Biden family's not in any business except politics, and that means power. Plus another $8 million from Democrat cronies in the United States over the same period of time. $27 million plus $8 million, that's $35 million. And that's Joe Biden's business. It's the shakedown. Now, he's, as dumb as a stump and all of that. But also keep in mind, Frank, that there is effectively no daylight between communism and fascism. They are born of the same womb. And we're looking at statism in the United States in ways that we've never seen it before. And statism, and Frank, you said you just discovered the radio show recently. There's a great story that's very telling that I have described before. It was one of the great people on our sea cruise several years ago now. And he's of Polish descent. He's Polish-American. His grandmother grew up in eastern Poland. And his grandmother was there as a young teenage girl when the Nazis invaded, right? And World War II is on. And here come the Nazis, and they take over Poland. And she lived under the Nazis for years as a young girl. And then the communists from Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union rolled their tanks in, and they, quote unquote, liberated Poland. I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. And they took down the Nazi flag, and they raised the Soviet flag. And my friend, who came along on the sea cruise, was telling the story beautifully. And he said he asked his grandmother when he was a young man, Grandma, what was the difference between living under the Nazis and living under the communists of the Soviet Union? And Grandma paused for a moment, and she said, the flag. The difference, Frank, was living under the flag. There's so little daylight between Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union and Adolf Hitler's Socialist Workers' Party in Germany. And it was the Socialist Workers' Party of Germany, just by the way, competing with the Communist Party in Germany. But never mind that. And, like Antifa, a communist group that was anti-fascist and pro-communist. And now the Democrats have adopted that here in the United States. They're the Antifa people. In fact, Chicago right now is full of thousands and thousands of Antifa. According to some accounts, there are 30,000 Antifa people in Chicago. I don't know if that can be substantiated or not, but Frank, there's no difference. And the statists, when the statists come, the hobnailed boot of the state, it doesn't matter whether it's a boot on the left foot or on the right foot. It's the hobnailed boot of the state. And yes, they have realized that they need a country where there is wealth generated, because otherwise they have nothing to confiscate. And the Soviet Union learned that they had nothing to confiscate. The Chinese communists learned, after murdering 50 million to 75 million of their own people, they learned there was nothing to confiscate. So the statists have learned that they need, and they're in bed with the billionaires and the oligarchs and on and on. Speaking of which, there's a crazy story out of the Mediterranean today about a billionaire that died. There's a super yacht, a mega yacht, was sunk off the coast of Sicily, and it's quite an amazing story, really, by a tornado. A tornado hit this super yacht off of Sicily and apparently killed a number of people. And it's quite an amazing story, because super yachts don't get hit by tornadoes in the Mediterranean Sea, and billionaires don't get killed in natural disasters as a rule. But this is a pretty crazy one. And I know I have the story here somewhere, but it seems to have disappeared on me because I have too many things going at the same time. Crazy, man, crazy. Yeah, where is that? I'll find it and I'll get back to you on it. Quite remarkable. Who's the billionaire? He's a tech billionaire. Killed in the tornado hitting the super yacht off of Sicily, which is a nice place to be on your super yacht, I've got to say. Let me just say, Yes, sir. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, and so also the leak right now is that Trayon White was arrested on bribery charges. I assume taking bribes, maybe to pay for his $10,000 a month apartment or something. Yes, sir. Now, you didn't have that story, did you, Michael? The Bayesian yacht, 6 people missing off of Sicily after tornado sinks luxury yacht. The tornado sinks the luxury yacht off of Sicily. That's a very unusual occurrence. Rescuers were working Monday searching for 6 people, including British tech tycoon Mike Lynch, a billionaire, who went missing after a luxury yacht was hit by a tornado and sank off the coast of Sicily, killing one of the 22 people aboard. I think more than that, but never mind. The vessel was hit by a tornado around 5 a.m. on Monday, according to a spokesperson for Italy's Coast Guard. The yacht was anchored about a half mile from the port of Porticello, on the Mediterranean island of Sicily. 4 Britons and 2 Americans were among those missing, the spokesperson said. You know, if you're missing after a tornado hits your yacht off of Sicily, chances are not very good that it's going to have a happy ending. But so 4 Britons, and 2 Americans missing, including Mike Lynch, this British tech tycoon, a tech billionaire. A source told CNN that Lynch, the founder of software giant Autonomy, was a passenger on the yacht. His wife, Angela Baccares, was rescued. The source spoke to CNN on the condition of anonymity. Doesn't everybody? Never talk to anybody on the record. Just always be anonymous. I'm going to do the rest of this radio show anonymously. 15 others were rescued from the scene. 1 child was airlifted to the Children's Hospital at Palermo. 8 people were hospitalized in total, according to the mayor's office. 1 body was found on the hull of the yacht, the Coast Guard said. Absolutely crazy stuff. We did a couple of years ago on our sea cruise. We went to Sicily. And I went to the fun town of Savoca. My best girl and I, we went to the town of Savoca, which is where a bunch of scenes from The Godfather are shot. It's where Michael Corleone meets Apollonia, and the wedding scene coming down the hill from the church and all that stuff. Great stuff, Savoca. Sicilia. Very nice. You're breaking my heart. So that's just a wild story because that doesn't happen very often. Know what I'm saying? Yeah, and the Washington Post, it's coming out in little drips because they're getting their information anonymously too. But now the Washington Post is reporting that Trayon White, DC City Councilman arrested by the FBI yesterday at his more than $10,000 a month luxury rental apartment. Trayon White faces bribery-related charge. That says 1 charge. Lawmaker who represents Ward 8 in Southeast Washington, D.C., remained detained Monday. He remained detained, mainly in the plane, awaiting initial appearance in U.S. District Court when court documents are expected to be unsealed. Trayon White thinks the Rothschild family controls the weather and the snow because Democrats. Now, I haven't gotten to this, but this is pretty wild. Over the weekend, it actually popped day before yesterday on the New York Times. The headline from Maureen Dowd from the DNC steno pool. The Dems are delighted, but a coup is still a coup, the headline is. Maureen Dowd, New York Times. We head to Chicago on a wave of euphoria, exuberance, exultation, excitement, and even, you might say, ecstasy. I don't think these people have normal sex lives, do you? You think they're talking about the hallucinogenic drug ecstasy? They're on a wave of ecstasy, or talking about orgasms, because these people are not normal people. It's going to be a glorious coronation, except that everyone is mad at one another. Top Democrats are bristling with resentments, even as they're about to try to put a united front on at the United Center in the Windy City. A coterie of powerful Democrats maneuvered behind the scenes to push an incumbent president out of the race. It wasn't exactly Julius Caesar in Rehoboth Beach, but it was a tectonic shift. And of course, there were going to be serious reverberations. Even though it was the right thing to do, because Joe Biden was not going to be able to campaign, much less serve as president for another 4 years in a fully vital way. It was a jaw-dropping putsch. Putsch, that's Russian for coup. But at some point, when the polls cratered, Democrat mandarins decided to put the welfare of the party and the country ahead of the president's ego. and stop catering to his self-regarding fantasy that he was the only one who could beat Donald Trump. Also, they all could know that Biden was slowing faster than he and his family and inner circle were acknowledging. Thanks. I'm glad you guys noticed that. I'm glad you picked up on that. Not a bright bunch. So they're all angry, Maureen Dowd explains. And she goes and talks to Ron Klain, who was the acting president and White House chief of staff for a while. And they're all very angry. I think it's unfortunate because I think the president had won the nomination fair and square. 14 million people had voted for him and the vice president. Sure. Those who pushed out Biden should be proud they saved him and their party from a likely crushing defeat, letting Trump snake back in and soil democracy. Tell us what you really think. These people are crazy, and they're destroying democracy, of course, in order to save it for themselves. Jackie Heinrich at Fox News is reporting that on the opening night of the DNC in Chicago, Kamala Harris's campaign website has no policy section. You can donate, you can volunteer, you can read bios filled with falsehoods, but no policy section at all. They've got the media doing their work for them. Let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Tom, calling from the greater Chicagoland area. Tom, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Wow, thanks for taking the call. Your previous caller, Frank, I think is a little confused. He's probably familiar with the term too big to fail corporations. And these corporations can't exist without government support. And they can't get that support without doing the bidding of government. This is called public control over the means of production and the distribution of wealth. And that's the definition of communism. So Frank is actually voting for that which he does not want.
Yeah.
Here in America, it's illegal for the insane to vote. So, Frank, you might want to rethink what you're doing.
Well, that had ruined the Democrat Party's entire project. That they wouldn't get anywhere. That as they've unionized and organized crazy people, and we're looking forward to seeing them in Chicago. I think they're gathering even as we speak for a march.